Welcome back to Anything Goes. I'm your 5-wing 4 host, Madison.
I'm your 9-wing 1 host, Caden.
You got it first try.
I know that never happens.
I know. For those
I'm
of
really
you,
proud of myself.
yeah, for those of you at home, I have to edit it out every time, like the first take.
But I get nervous. I don't know why. It's just like something the weird like Zoom lady's voice comes on, recording in progress, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, I'm being witnessed.
I felt that this time. That's why I needed to take an initial like deep breath. I had to like recenter myself.
Mhm.
I think it's because I've been in Zoom all day.
That's fair. I'm gonna apologize to the listeners ahead of time. I am suffering from a head cold, so if I sound congested and nasally and bad to listen to, it's just gonna be what it is.
Yeah, that was me last month. So
yeah, it's not COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Already had
That's
that.
Nice. I'm boosted now.
I was boosted at the time that I got it.
Oh, great. Love that. I did. Oh, I got a doctor's appointment and I went in for the thyroid stuff, and they were running the blood work, and they did call me and they were like, well, like they've got to discuss it with me because like my thyroid levels have like dropped back into normal, but they're like on the upper edge of normal. So they're going to retest again to see how it fluctuates. But also they were like, your white blood cell count is high. Do you have an infection or anything? I was like, I don't have a fever. So I also might pre-check white blood cell count.
Interesting.
I know, right?
Random thing to find.
Yeah, like I don't have a fever. I don't feel bad. But my white blood cell count was like elevated to the point that it like indicated an infection or something.
Well, so maybe it was doing its job, fighting it off.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it was COVID and I didn't know I had it.
Who knows?
But that's what reminded me of it, because I was like, maybe I had COVID when I went in, and I just maybe I just didn't have any symptoms. I don't know. But they're gonna retest that. So we have already
gone off track.
So many tangents.
So a little bit of a disclaimer, if you're just tuning in, we are bad at sticking to any sort of brevity.
This is a banter podcast.
Informal.
We are not safe for work. We are very LGBTQ friendly. We are not professionals. We're really not professionals. Really, so don't
take our advice.
We don't know anything.
We're not Enneagram community. I was also reading like a lot. I finally did research for this one. I was reading sources and I was like, oh dang, I forgot how Christian all of the Enneagram everything is. So that's another thing. We're not a spiritual podcast, not a Christian one. If you're looking to connect with a higher power, that's probably not here.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe it'll help. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Ooh, sorry, tangent. I like this link I like this source that you found. I did not read this one.
Oh, I feel so like that's when you have your 5 friend tell you that like, I like this source that you brought me. I didn't find it before. I feel like that's validation. Instant validation.
Very nice. I love this. But yeah. Some other updates. So if you tuned in to our last podcast, so we have a Patreon, which you should go support us. And on it, we used to have 3 tiers. And the last one was a crazy expensive tier that we didn't think anyone would possibly want to donate. It was more of a joke for us, really. I mean, we still wanted the stuff in it, but like it was really more of just like a little joke. And in it, if you paid $600, I would join the Arca Institute, which is a little culty-ish, and buy a $500 book from them and like keep everyone updated on the journey and stuff. And someone did it. We have a patron.
The patron.
The patron. Or did we say the benefactor? What
the benefactor?
Is that what we were calling her?
I don't remember. It's been a month.
Yeah, it's been a month.
We could just think of a cool new moniker every time. Just have like a rotating cycle of different names, you know?
Yeah, so she's the benefactor. And so to update everyone on that process, I have started the process for joining the ARCA Institute. I have emailed and submitted the application and all that, and I have received an email from them to schedule an interview, and I sent them my availabilities, and I have not heard back yet. But it did take them like a while to actually email me. So I don't know. In all fairness to them, though, I didn't see it for like 4 days because it got sorted into my trash, my spam folder. But yeah, so I did.
Can I tell you about the time that my sister's, this is also another tangent, but I think it's so fucking hilarious. My sister's applying to law schools right now, and she's a very smart person, very accomplished, and is applying to a lot of the like Ivy Leagues. And so she got an email from one of them, from like the dean of their law school, saying, "I'm so glad to like have you with us," or whatever. And she's like, "Wait, I didn't even get an acceptance letter. What do they mean?" It was like a video of him, like a video file of him saying like, "Can't wait to meet you in the fall." She's like, "What? Like, this is a weird way of telling me you got an acceptance." Her acceptance letter went into her spam folder.
Has she chosen a law school yet, or did she apply to multiple? Or
no, I mean she's still waiting to hear about packages. It's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap.
Not cheap.
I wish her all the best, though. She'd be a great lawyer.
It's that one attention to detail.
Yeah. I could never be a lawyer. I
feel like you get frustrated by it.
I would. And the thing is, you can be held in contempt of court, and I would get my ass arrested in contempt of court. Because I'd be
the
like,
bailiff would have to throw you out.
I know. I'd be like, respectfully, Your Honor, you're a fucking idiot. Because like that's shit that I do. Like I have told bosses to like go fuck themselves, or like I'll be like, that's the stupidest fucking idea I've ever heard. I think it's because once I am really good in a workplace, I'll start going to 8. And I have no filter. Because I go to like, I'll integrate to an average level 8 and be like, what the fuck are you doing? Stupid. So yeah, I'd have to work on myself a little bit more before I could do that. Fives chime in. What is like, do you also have that problem when integrating to 8, or am I just, is there correlation between the wings? You know, if you've got like a 6 wing, are you more like considerate of authority, or like, I'm a 4 wing, so I don't know. I'm not afraid to tell people they're a fucking idiot. You laugh, but
I no, I believe it. I'm flashing back to Moist Lips Steve. Which I think we mentioned him in another episode, so that's the kind of a deep cut.
The problem is I don't know if I cut him out or not. Yeah. In case we did cut it out, Moist Lips Steve was talking at a table, and he mentioned how this girl, he was like, she was giving him the runaround of being like, oh, I just want to be friends, you know, and he was like, I don't get why she just won't come out and like tell me she's not interested, or yada yada yada, like I don't get it. And I was gonna like jump down his throat, and Caden stopped me.
I was like, he doesn't actually want to get it though. Like he's not asking for help, he's asking for validation. Yeah. So
but I did not want to give him that validation. I wanted to rip the validation away from him. He didn't deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't giving him validation. We weren't even talking to him. I just wanted to continue to not talk to him.
Yeah, but I wanted I needed to correct the situation. But yeah, so that's an update on, I don't know how we got from Arca Institute to Moist Lip Steve. I never know how this happens.
Any other announcements you'd like to cover?
Patreon is still up. Oh yeah, we have social medias. We have a Twitter. It's at EnneathingGoes, same way it's spelled here. And our email is EnneathingGoes@gmail.com. And you know what? Please, 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 please email us. I want some more interaction. I want some more interaction. Yeah. So just even if it's just to say hi.
How's it going?
How's it going? I just want a hi. Sorry, I'm going into my forewing. I need attention.
Okay.
All right, ready? All right. So let's jump on into the question of the month, which is not even the question of the month. We did 2 months of like breather.
Of 2021.
Yeah.
I think.
So yeah, it was a while ago. It was our December episode. So the question was, let me find it. Did you have a comfort object as a kid? Do you still have it? And how important is it to you? So I also posted this on Reddit, and I have some of those answers. I didn't get any answers at all from any 3s. Did you get any? You did.
I avoid 3s. I generally speaking, there's that theory that like you create your type based on what you're moving away from as your point of integration, when you're a kid, you see 3s and you're just like, fuck no, I don't want to be that. And so then become a 9, or you're a kid and you see 8s and you're like, fuck no. And so you become a 5. That's how I kind of feel about 3s. And I haven't met enough of them to kind of break that habit. So
gotta get you to hang out with Fra more.
Yeah. We could kick it.
All right, back into this. So we didn't get any 3s. Did you get any 6 responses?
I also don't know that many 6s. I know one from college that I haven't talked to since college.
I have 2 6 siblings. And my brother was very deeply attached to his blankie. He had a blanket that he carried everywhere. I don't know how that impacts his current life. I will say he really does love blankets still. Like, he's got to have a bunch of throw blankets everywhere, so maybe there's some subconsciousness there. We did get, for this question, we got a lot of 9 responses. So I'll read them. So this 9 said, I am a 9 and I have a baby blanket that I've kept and still use in adulthood. I'm currently 36 and sleep with it most nights. And then another 9 that says, I'm an autistic 9 and I didn't have a comfort object the way most people do, but I did really like this one bag of beads. I would examine the color variations at length. I still have it and I still like looking at the interesting beads. So we got 2 9s, both had comfort objects, both kept comfort objects into adulthood. What about your responses, Caden?
Yeah. As a 9, I had I had a stuffed animal elephant that was gifted to me as a baby that is still kicking around at my parents' house somewhere, like a box of random stuff. But I also had a blanket that was knitted by my deceased great-grandmother that my mother borrowed and lost. So I don't have it. But yeah, that I did have a blankie at one point.
Oh. Okay. Do we have any more?
Your face when I told you that.
Yeah, I was like,
oh no.
Oh God.
Oh God. That was Alyssa. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Is it me?
No, it's okay. We were laughing. It'll get cut.
But yeah, so the reason we asked this is because we are moving into the object relations triad. And 3s, 9s, and 6s are in the triad that we're talking about today, which is the attachment triad. All right, so let's get into the meat of this episode. There's no meat. This is just banter. What am I saying? Don't get your hopes up.
I'm a vegetarian.
Okay, so object relations, just like the Hornevian triad, is also originated outside of the Enneagram and was brought into the Enneagram. Okay. It is the psychological foundation for the idea of how the personality is formed. And so it basically is a theory that starts out with your personality is formed based on how you interact with your caregivers and how they interact towards you, that kind of attachment that you build, and mainly with your mother. So I have a quote here. Object relations is a theory that comes from psychoanalysis that states in a very small nutshell that our first relationships as babies form the experiences of our adult relationships. But yeah, and it's also it's one of the maybe the first theories that diverged from Sigmund Freud's theory that humans were motivated by sexual and aggressive drives, and more so that they're motivated by the need to form relationships and contact with others. But yeah, so that's mainly what I got on object relations. Oh, we also might, I think, yeah, we're still going that way. We might talk about attachment styles. So those attachment styles, I'll just go through them real quick. They're secure attachment. There's secure and insecure attachment, and then insecure attachment is divided into 3 groups. But secure attachment is demonstrated, and I'm just going to quote these. Secure, demonstrated by possessing a positive view of self and a positive view of others. People with this attachment style typically have a positive regard for themselves, their partners, and their relationships. And then you have insecure, and then the first type is anxious, preoccupied, which is demonstrated by possessing a negative view of self and a positive view of others. And so people with an anxious attachment style typically have lower self-worth, are preoccupied with attachment, and seek high levels of intimacy, affirmation, and responsiveness from their partners. And then the next insecure we have is dismissive avoidant, which is demonstrated by possessing a positive view of self and a negative view of others. So while people with this attachment style, and all attachment styles for that matter, do want intimacy, they place great importance on independence, self-sufficiency, and space, and appear to avoid attachment altogether. And then the last insecure attachment is fearful avoidant. And so this is demonstrated by possessing an unstable, fluctuating view of self and others. And so people with this attachment style tend to feel uncomfortable with intimacy, typically doubt their worthiness of emotional closeness, and struggle to trust their partners. They often have negative views of both themselves and their attachments. So we will be discussing that a little bit more as we go throughout this episode. What would you like to add?
I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
I think we can hop into our next section. But I did want to highlight, so, okay, we talk about object relations, and oftentimes it's talked about as the object relations triad, which is what the term that we're using. But I was looking into it. I also found that they're sometimes called the harmony triad. And this is something that I'm pulling. I mean, directly, the initial source I had was at a website called EnneagramExplained.com. But as I was also looking into Christopher Huertz's book, which, there's like, Huertz has his own problematic shit going on, right? But that's the terms that he uses as well, although he does say that Riso and Hudson and the Enneagram Institute use that object relation labeling that we are going to use for the episode. So that's kind of where that's going. And then the harmony groups are apparently the name originates with Dr. David Daniels, according to this source. Okay. So, I mean, it's the same, like they're the same groups, but instead of attachment, frustration, rejection, which are the frameworks that we're using, they have pragmatist for attachment, idealist for frustration, and relationist for rejection.
That's interesting.
Yes.
This is by the way the source that Caden sent that I didn't know about. Good source. Pat.
So, I mean, we can talk about those more and maybe what that other label fleshes out about that type as we get more into the different kinds of them.
Yeah. So just a brief overview of what types are which. 693 is the attachment pragmatist, which we're going over today. Do you want to read what you've written next to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get more in depth with this, but for pragmatist, my explanation is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because that's really, the pragmatism is more about, well, things are working how they are. So like, I don't really want to have to do anything about it.
Then we've got frustration and idealist, which is 1, 7, and 4. I like that name for them. And then we've got rejection and relationist, which is 5, 8, 2. I've also found, which source is this from? I found another source that divided the attachment, frustration, and rejection triads into 3 different parts. So it had the nurturing object, the protective object, and the belonging object.
I have found that also. It's the same categorization, but instead of belonging, it's been labeled both nurturing and protecting.
Okay. What my source has done, which it will be linked in the show notes, it has assigned the 3 to the nurturing object, the 6 to the protective object, and the 9 to the belonging object. And we'll discuss that more in depth with each one. And the source has also done that with the frustration triad and the rejection triad. And so we can discuss that more in depth with each of those.
Essentially, it's just a matrix. On one side is the object relations triad, and on the other side is the Hornevian groups that we've discussed previously. So if you want to go more in depth about the Hornevian groups, go back and listen to our other episodes about those 3.
Yep. All right. So a little more about
I do have one more note here.
Okay.
And this is, I am drawing heavily from Huertz because he has a whole chapter that talks about it, and it's actually really hard to find resources on these like triad things. But he talks about like the base need for attachment for the attachment group was met by the caregiver with either recognition for the 3, stability for the 6, independence, like that need inside of them was met by that nurturing, protective, or he calls it both, but belonging. And that's what creates that relationship, the attachment.
Yeah. The belonging that I found when I was reading about it, it was like broader family. So like your family structure and family unit. So I get why he says both, because it was more just like how you fit it starts with how you fit into your family dynamic, and then how do you fit socially.
Right.
So however you view whatever becomes your family,
Right. I think it's also important to call out the idea that like in a lot of these theories, when they create these kind of like almost like gendered and binary dynamics around like nurturing and protecting, it's very easy to fall into like a cis hetero normative way of thinking about like male and female and like mother and father and like what that means. But that families come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, and like this is applicable to all of it, or it's supposed to be. Everyone has nurturing and protective qualities, and everyone has nurturing and protective people in their life, and that doesn't necessarily map to like a mom and a dad.
I would love to see these kinds of studies done on gay and like LGBT families with kids. I think the only problem with that is sometimes with like the rate of adoption in our community could probably skew the numbers and stuff, skew the data.
I would also like to see cross-cultural studies on like this kind, but in settings where multi-generational households and like more communal raising of children is more normalized. You know, because I think we have this like in the US, which we're based out of, and this is like, Western white culture is the predominant thing going on here for a lot of folks. There's this like idea that you have to have the nuclear family unit as your family, which is not the case for a lot of folks.
Don't like
tangent.
Yeah, there we go. I'm just gonna start ringing a tangent bell and just like
just have like a gong.
It's like there we go.
Like
okay. So I'm ready to dive into specifically attachment / what was it? Attachment /
pragmatist.
Okay. Attachment / pragmatist.
We should call this episode If It Ain't Broke.
If it ain't broke. I got it. I love it. I'll do that. Okay. So what I have found about this, which you exist in this triad, so you should probably be leading this discussion, but most of my research has said that people in the attachment pragmatist triad, they basically, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They tend to show a like sense of security in the fact that their needs are being met, sometimes to a fault, and that they quote, their sense of self is based on being deeply attached to things perceived as good, and so they feel content even if they're not really, like they kind of project over it, have this contentedness in their attachments, and their main desire is to like keep it content through various means. So it's like, we're, this attachment's strong, it's good, it's gonna last. So go ahead and dive into what you have.
Yeah.
You have some interesting stuff.
Right. Okay. So I have 2 points of discussion here that I want to bring up. First of all, I think it's very interesting, the through line that I'm noticing between 369 and, we want to talk about how these are also all integration and disintegration points. So it reinforces a lot of those similar traits because you're borrowing from the traits of the other people in that triad. But like, one thing that I have come to realize about myself that I am hypothesizing as a more universal truth for this triad in general is that you have a really hard time being alone, because if it's all about like the attachment is for other people to fulfill your sense of identity. And this is, I think, bringing into my other point, which is Hertz claims that each of these harmony triads, what he calls them, or object relations triads, is driven by the energy of the heart center type in that triad. So for this one, it would be the 3, which would make sense in the sense of like, how is it like being alone? The primary issue here is that you have attached your sense of self to your surroundings or your situation. For 6s, it's that like security. Your sense of self is based on the security. For 9s, it's that like the independence from, I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about myself like that in a way that I don't know if that's making sense at all. But maybe I'm getting to a point where I'm like 3s as the heart center leading. And then also the identity crisis of like, I can't be alone, because if I'm alone, then like my sense of identity is based on my attachment to my like situation. I don't know. Also, I don't buy Hertz stuff, because after he has this whole thing, he's like, brags about meeting Mother Teresa, and it's like, I don't know, goes off on his whole random shit there. Is Mother Teresa a 2? This is my other question here. That's a complete tangent, and I know it, but we can like cut this if you want. Is she a 2?
I don't know enough about
I don't think
Mother
I buy
Teresa.
that.
I don't know enough about her, what she's done. The thing is, I feel like she was a very much an ends justify the needs kind of person.
I think she was an 8.
Yeah, she might have been, because she did some questionable stuff, even for like, for a nun. And it was like, it was something like accepting and taking donations from like gangs and cartels or something to give to needy people. So I'm like, I respect it. Like, I am also an ends justify the means kind of person. And like, yeah, sure, like taking the money from the drug cartels is way better than them having it, especially since she's gonna put it to good use feeding people. But people were like, you shouldn't accept that money and like bless them. And she's like, I don't give a fuck, I'm feeding these hungry people. I respect it. I'm down with it. I respect it.
Yeah. So I don't think Mother Teresa's a 2.
I don't know. I'd have to learn more about her. That tangent probably is getting cut out. I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it in. Maybe, you know what? My birthday is on Tuesday. I am going to barely edit this. That's my birthday present to myself. So you listener listening at home, I'm barely editing it, and it's my birthday present to myself. You can get some sneak peek into the tangents.
Nice.
All right. Ready to start 3s?
Uh-huh.
All right. So 3s in our little like chart thing, 3s are paired with the nurturing object, which in the harmonic triad, what did it map to again? I forget.
Whoa. Okay, hold on. You're making me look up stuff now.
Yeah.
Making
you work.
Harmonic stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo. Competency. Gotta refresh
okay, so
my brain.
Yep. So it mapped to the 3 mapped to the nurturing object, and it mapped to competency.
No, I'm using the wrong thing here. But this is because I looked up the harmonic groups.
Oh, I might have said harmonic groups because harmony.
It's the Hornevian. Okay, there's too many triads here.
There's too many, and I will never have them all memorized for as long as I live. Even if I become like the world's best Enneagram expert, I will never know these.
You're given a training, and you just like have these notes written down in your hand, where you have to like glance at them, like, okay, and that was this one. Okay, yep. So they are assertive.
Assertive. Okay.
Right? That's the 378.
Yes.
Yep. Assertive.
Yes. So, and then their insecure attachment is dismissive avoidant, which is the one where you have a great view of yourself and a bad view of others, and it creates some trust issues and intimacy issues. And I have a quote. Where's my quote? Quote, type 3's thought, I am a winner and you might compromise that. So when they're in an insecure attachment. And the quote from this website is at average and unhealthy levels of development, 3s are hyper focused on curating an image of success and admirability. Everything in their life says something about them: their job, their house, their car, and their partner. While this comes from a place of insecurity, fear, and shame, the external projection is that of confidence, success, and being a winner. It's important to 3s that their partner not only acknowledge and appreciate them for their accomplishments, but make them look good as well. If 3s believe that relationships will distract from their goals, reflect poorly on them, or lead to rejection or being found out, they will use deactivating strategies to push the other person away. So
interesting.
I know. I think that's really weird that that's paired with the attachment, which is like everything's fine, this is good enough. So I think it's interesting.
Dismissive avoidant.
Yeah.
But
their whole being in the attachment and pragmatist is like they're attached to their like self-image and success, and that where's my other quote? Their attachment is based on how people can meet their ego's need for like for recognition, really.
Okay. I had the thought about how, like, the object relation triad, building off of object relations as like a psychoanalytical theory, is all about how we related to our earliest caregivers. But I have like in my brain it's just like 3s and like dance moms. Like dance moms make 3s.
Yes.
Because that's the nurturing, right? I'm like, how are they nurturing? Like, how is 3s nurturing? They gain the ability to self-nurture because that's what they received as children, was like an overabundance of nurture and not necessarily protection. Like, you watch those dance mom shows, they are not protecting their children.
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh,
they're hanging them
no.
out there. They're dangling them out there like a piece of meat.
Yeah. They were not protected because they were pushed towards overachieving at a young age.
Yeah. And also, so the other one, which is the both parents are the like belonging, their community is based off of competing against each other and one-upping each other. So their whole place in their community is constantly destabilized. So the only thing is the nurturing, the like getting the best. All 3s.
Yep.
It's just really sad. 3s, do you relate? Was that your childhood?
Let us know.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Do we have anything else on 3s?
I don't know per se. I mean, there's.
I feel like we're gonna fly through 3s and 6s and then spend forever on 9s.
And then right, because I'm so self-centered. It's just what I know. Well, okay. If we want to talk more about 3s. No, I don't know if I have anything deeper to say. I find it interesting, though, that Okay, I do have something. Talking about the attachment theory, dismissive avoidant, where, I'm great, everyone else sucks. I find that interesting in threes because I don't think it really holds up, right? Like if you're talking about the fundamental fear, right? And I like whenever I mean, I go back to basics here. I like there's a Deep Living Institute has their little iceberg stuff.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
Yes.
And
we should do an episode on the iceberg.
On the icebergs, we really should.
We really should.
But for those, that sense of self, being accomplished, goal-oriented with unlimited potential, like that is okay. You're trying to figure out a way to frame this. If that was really their sense of self, they wouldn't like bend over backwards to whatever anyone else was thinking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if any of that made sense right now.
I don't know. I'm just trying to connect the pieces of threes in my mind because I feel like there's a lot of like conflicting information. And I wonder if it's just conflicting because it's talking about threes at like different levels of health. Maybe.
Probably.
Yeah. And that it's getting all conflated into just average 3.
Okay. So let's talk about it. Let's break it down then. 3 at 9. 3, lowest level 3. As an attachment oriented individual.
So I think
over attached to their image of themselves.
Have you seen Parks and Recreation?
I have not.
For those who have at home, think Tom Haverford. Basically, when I see that, it's that their sense of their feeling of worthlessness is so ever present, but they're denying it so hard. So they're trying to keep up with the denial, and they're trying to surround themselves with people who help keep that denial. I think this is the stage where the most denial can be found, and like it's everything is fine and I'm super great. Deep down they're like, I'm fucking awful. I'm super great, everything is fine. And that's because they're surrounding themselves, their attachments are secure because they're surrounding themselves with like yes men. Yeah.
So, but okay, this is bad. So this is making me think about I've been reading a lot of the news lately about Putin and Ukraine and all of the horrible shit that's going on there. And a lot of people are doing profiles on Putin right now. And they're talking about, I'm not saying that Putin is a 3. Don't quote me on that. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is they've recognized a dynamic where his tendency to surround himself only by people who will say what he wants to hear, like they are seeing that visibly shift where he's isolating himself more, and
because
he almost seems contemptuous of those people. And that's where I'm wondering if that's that kind of dynamic there where it's like I'm at my lowest point, I'm surrounding myself with people who will build me up, but I know it's ultimately false because I don't feel that within myself, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel contempt. This is the dismissive avoidant, right? I feel contempt for everyone else around me because I think I'm so much better than them because I don't buy the lie that I've told them.
Oh, and then because
to them it is a lie.
Yeah, and as they move into greater levels of health, they start stripping down the lie to themselves. And so at like average level, they're more aware of the like feeling of worthlessness inside of them and that fear. They are more aware of the perceived inauthenticity of the people around them, or at least the people around them might not be inauthentic. However, they're believing the lie, you know, and so they're aware of the inauthenticity of fuck it, you know what I mean. Of the people in their environment around them, and as that shifts, they're starting to lose that trust. And then how does that look in health? So they've shed the lie.
Yep.
They are aware of their feelings of worthlessness and are actively correcting it, being like, no, this is where I'm strong, and building up a group of people who are there for them, their authentic selves, and creating that nice, stable attachment. And they're secure in that. That's
that 6 loyalty, that sense of community, you know, that you're fostering like a healthy relationships with other people.
Yeah. Okay. I think we did good. We did good by 3s.
Okay.
We did good by 3s.
Good. I'm glad. I was kind of worried we were just going to be like, yeah, it's, you know, you're a 3, bye.
Yeah. All right. I think we can move on to 6s. All right. So 6s, let's look back at our chart. So 6s are in the protective object, which is, I forget which Hornevian group. Can you find Hornevian group for that? So 6s are...
Oh, I put it in the notes there.
Oh, so there we go.
Yep, the protective would be compliant.
They were in compliant group.
Oh, let me double check that real quick.
Listen, remember how we disagreed with some of the Hornevian groups?
Oh, yep.
This will be interesting. Especially since I don't think... So, was 3 one of the ones we disagreed on?
No, we disagreed on 7 and 1, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but other people disagreed on 3.
Yes.
And
you know what? Seeing this protective and nurturing and belonging, I do think I am doubling down on the 7 and 1 being switched.
Yeah.
In the scenario. But that's our highly unprofessional opinion.
Yeah. Highly unprofessional. We'll get into that next because we're doing, I believe, frustration next. So 6 is attachment, protective object, which is compliant. And then we have, where's my other source here? In their attachment, they are, for their insecure attachment, they are fearful, avoidant, which is, so their quote, their I don't know how to say that. It's the story they tell themselves. Their thought quote basically is I'm not sure I can trust the relationship. Quote, all realms of an average or unhealthy 6's life are shadowed by uncertainty and doubt, especially in relationships. 6's value loyalty, trustworthiness, and reliability, and not only doubt themselves, their negative view of self, but also doubt their partners, their trustworthiness, and whether they're truly supportive. The hot and cold tendency of the type 6 in relationship closely reflects the duality of the fearful avoidant attachment style, which is characterized by a mix of anxious and avoidant behaviors. For example, 6s will worry about whether the person is really there for them and want to reassure them at times, while feeling smothered and wanting more distance at other times. So this was also, the fearful avoidant is the one where it's mixed. So sometimes they're feeling great about themselves and they think others are awful. Sometimes they think they're awful and others are great. And sometimes everyone's awful and sometimes everybody's great. And that's why it's such a mix.
I find that really interesting. You know what? Do you think there's a correlation between like the phobic and counterphobic, and which of those things they draw on most in the fearful avoidant. They've got the 4 different options there. Like, which ones are you drawing on? And does that make you more phobic or counterphobic?
I would need to do way more research because I'm trying to think of my siblings.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you are phobic, I think you can become, based on, this is purely my experience, and I would love to hear from 6s to chime in. I feel like phobic 6s can become more disillusioned by like establishments and their security and their perceived security. And so I think phobic 6s are more likely to start out from a place of trust in those deeply embedded things, and like, I'm worthless, these are good, and it shifts as they experience it more to, wait, I'm actually really good and this is bad. Whereas the counterphobics, they're more like fuck everything, I'm great, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna beat this, everything else is awful. And then it shifts more to being like, oh, you know what, that thing that I might have thought was awful, like a stable relationship, is actually pretty cool, and then maybe I was wrong about that. And so that's the kind of shift that I have seen and I have experienced. However, my experience is very limited in this area.
Right. Small sample size.
Very small.
Send us your thoughts, 6s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Scrolling down, where's my 6s? Okay. So the 6s attachment style is very much the like, things are fine, everything is fine, as long as their attached person is fine. They're willing to ignore their own issues, ignore everything else, as long as their partner is good, as long as their partner is fine. And they're like, this is fine, I can ignore my own issues, everything's great. And above all else, the attachment, the loyalty, the like protection, the group dynamic is way more important to them than their own mental, physical well-being in most cases. As they move to greater levels of health, it becomes less so. Or conversely, deeper levels of unhealth can produce the paranoia. So that would be interesting to dive into and talk about. I don't know.
Do you want to do the same? Start with
let's do the latter. The problem is, I think it's really hard for 6s because of the phobic versus counterphobic.
Right. It presents very differently.
Yeah. Because I think on the one hand, you'd have like, at the very, very bottom level, you could have like a Peter Pettigrew scenario of like
I'm caving to whatever just so I can
whatever
get some security.
Is the strongest power, no matter what it means, I'm just attaching myself to it.
Right.
Or you've got tinfoil hats as the other side of the 6. And I don't know which one would be more counterphobic or phobic at that very base level. Maybe counterphobic, tinfoil hat, phobic, Peter Pettigrew.
That's what I would lean to. Yeah. Okay.
One is everything is scary, I need someone to protect me. The other is everything is scary, I need to protect myself.
Right. Well, and I wonder if that sort of like the counterphobic 6 attachment would, like, this in the stereotypical sense, would be like conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
But having a narrative, like attaching yourself to a narrative, more so than like any system or individual.
Yeah. And so that can start out as the base of like the fearful avoidant of like, one starting out, I am worthless, this thing is better. I am great. Everything else is trash. And so the phobic starting out as I'm worthless. Peter Pettigrew going up. Then we get to middle ground, which I feel like middle ground for sixes is just, I don't know. There's a lot of like paranoia, projection, all of that from around. And I feel like this is the most like where we're getting the most shifts. And this is where we're seeing the shifts. Because they're becoming, again, more disillusioned by what's going on around them. And being like, either, the thing, maybe that conspiracy theory was wrong. Or maybe this can't be as trusted, And then in growth, we're actually finding those stable attachments where they can genuinely trust it. Fully attached. Things are nice. They have a much better view of what they're attaching themselves to.
I have written as a note here something that I wanted to explore, like the impact of being in the head center on the way that they approach attachment. And I wonder if that sort of predisposition to overthinking things sometimes means that their sense of stability is heavily tied up in their thought patterns and not necessarily grounded in like the physical reality as much.
Yeah.
And that maybe moving away from the thought patterns and into the physical reality is part of that integration to 9.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Because that's that projection bit, right? Where it's just like, well, it's happening in my head, so it must be happening.
When they're at 3, that would be more feeling centered. At the lowest levels, they'd be going to 3 more.
Yeah. What? Yeah. And so how does that?
Their feeling is ruling their thoughts. So they're thinking from their head, but instead of being like, oh, this is a feeling, they're internalizing it as fact.
Okay. So I feel threatened because the thing that I've attached to, whether that's a belief system or a person or a structure or something, isn't giving me what I need, which is stability. So I'm internalizing that as you're unreliable.
And that's the fact. Because
that is the fact.
A head type.
Right.
I don't have feelings. I have facts.
Right. Oh, I wonder if 6s are just like, those people who like save up all of the things that you have ever done and like hold them for a rainy day.
Yeah.
That's like that's the vibes.
Are you ready to move on to 9s? I know you're never ready to move on to 9s.
Sure. Let's do it.
All right, so our charts again. So 9s are attachment and then the belonging object. So that's the withdrawn type. Interesting. Withdrawn and it's still being belonging and so group oriented. Interesting.
Well, it makes sense when you think about what they're getting from the attachment is independence.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Okay. And so 9s, for their insecure attachments, they are anxious, preoccupied. So the story that 9s tell themselves is, I just want you to be happy. And so this is the attachment where I am bad, you are good. Nines are prone to an insecure attachment style due to their focus on maintaining peace and harmony in their relationships. They'll naturally have a positive regard for their partner, as they do for almost everyone, but fear that there will be conflict or that the other person will be upset. To prevent this from happening, they employ ego-driven strategies such as accommodating the other person, merging with their partner, failing to assert boundaries. They spend their energy trying to keep the other person happy and sacrifice or deny their own needs to stay connected. It is certainly a note that anxious preoccupied is the only attachment style triad that overlaps with, oh, that's not continuing the quote, but this is interesting. I have another quote here that's, I don't think it's entirely related to nines, but I somehow missed it. So, quote, it is certainly of note that anxious preoccupied is the only attachment style triad that overlaps with another known triad, the positive outlooks types. This actually makes sense as the anxious preoccupied types have a positive view of others and their relationships, and the positive outlook types approach problems, conflicts, and others with a positive mindset. This mindset is characterized by phrases such as things will work out. In the long run, it'll be okay. And let's look at things at the bright side. Interesting. That's very clear.
When nines say, I just want you to be happy, though, I want to translate that for all other not nines out there. What they're really meaning is, I want you to leave me alone. But please stop this conversation.
Yeah. I just want to be done with the conversation at that point.
Can we go back to watching TV?
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see, what else do we have? God, what are we doing? Attachment. So nines work to stay attached to their partners. They are most secure in their attachments. I feel like there's some serial monogamy stuff in this.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And so like everything is fine until it's not, and so they start creating a new relationship where everything is fine. So there's never a point where everything is not fine. So they just jump relationship to relationship. So it's always fine.
Yeah, I think that about that fits.
But they are much more secure in their relationships.
Oh, so this is something that we forgot to talk about with sixes, which was when we're talking about the protective object, like the idea behind that, right, is that they received, they attached to their protective caregiver, whoever that may be. Maybe it's multiple people, but they got a lot of protection, and so they learned how to self-protect, and so that's how they became, sixes in this theory, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? We forgot to talk about that. But then for nines, it's about belonging, right? So you kind of attach to everybody, which is why you're like, I like everyone. And if anyone doesn't like me, it's absolutely miserable.
Because it was more of that group dynamic. How do you feel about that? Do you feel that your upbringing was a lot more group dynamic based, very strong community, very good parenting, very good?
I think so. So as a background, my parents are divorced and have been divorced for 20 years or so now. So they got divorced when I was relatively young, and they co-parented very well. Not that there weren't hiccups in that, but I think they both really did prioritize having a sense of like family within that, and like being a team. And Yeah, I mean, even today they hang out. My mom goes over to my dad's and has brunch and plays games with him every weekend. There are no kids there anymore. Like, I'm the youngest. Like, they don't have kids together to raise together. But, we have a family call every week where we go talk about our week.
I love your parents' relationship. And just like, it may not be romantic love, but we're still love each other like friends. That kind of like,
yeah.
I just love that. I love that.
No, I think that they're both really awesome people, and I'm glad that they were cognizant enough and aware enough about their own relationships and in prioritizing us kids that they kind of got over themselves a little bit. I have seen divorces that are definitely not as nice. Like,
as a teacher right now, yeah, so many just horrible things.
Right. So what I'm interested in, though, is that belonging and how it relates specifically to independence, because they seem like they're sort of that's like a counterintuitive relationship there, right? Like, I'm attaching myself to all of you so I get to secure independence for myself. Instead of, I mean, there's the withdrawing stuff, right? The withdrawing in there.
Is it because of the insecure attachment, which is I'm bad, you're like negative views of self, great views of others. Now that I've attached myself to someone good, I can be
good.
Yeah, and I can be independent now. I don't have to worry about anything. I've got an attachment.
Maybe, yeah. Having your relationships be sort of definitional to who you are, I could see that. I think also I mean, with nines, I've noticed, well, I can talk to my personal experience here and make sort of suppositions about how everyone else who's a nine feels. But I think there's a conflation with like love as an emotion.
Yeah.
And like lack of, I don't know if antipathy is the right word, but like, lack of badness being goodness. So the idea is, I want love. I can secure love by creating, semi-nice relationships with everyone, because if it's not negative, then it must be positive.
Yeah. See. Question. Out of the anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, and fearful avoidant, do you relate to anxious, preoccupied? Out of those three, is that the one that you feel fits most? Because when I was looking at them, I was like, yeah, I'm fearful avoidant. Look down at the chart, fearful avoidant right there.
Right.
Do you feel it fits?
Right. Can I get a little brief description again, just to refresh?
Yes, you can. Let me scroll back up to it. So your choices are anxious, preoccupied, which is what you've been assigned, which is the negative view of self and a positive view of others. People with an anxious attachment style typically have lower self-worth, are preoccupied with attachment, and seek higher levels of intimacy, affirmation, and responsiveness from their partners. Your other choices are dismissive avoidant, which is positive view of self, negative view of others. And so don't want intimacy, but want intimacy, have a harder time connecting. And then the fearful avoidant, which is the mixed. Sometimes I'm the best, sometimes I'm the worst. and issues with trust and issues with their quote is, I want intimacy, but I find it difficult to completely trust or depend on others.
Right. So, okay, I hate to be like, but I'm special. But I kind of feel a little bit of all of them. And part of that is the integration, disintegration, wheel of death, as we call it. And I also feel like I actually have like positive view of self, positive view of others. Like, I don't want to toot my horn being like,
well, that would
I'm
be
so
secure.
integrated.
You're secure. Because there's the insecure attachments, but the secure is positive view of self, positive view of others.
Right. And I think there are moments where I slip back down into 6 and I may be a little bit more, wobbly around all of that. But overall, I'd like to think I'm relatively healthy. That's the idea of going to therapy
like what
and doing
we've
a bunch
said
of
is
self-work.
The peak healthy is that secure attachment. And so when you're not in a bad place, but you're not necessarily healthy,
right,
say you are.
Yes, and I personally struggle with the idea that I have a negative self-worth, even though there are definitely times where I have felt a negative self-worth. And part of that is there are social messages that get pushed to people that say, like, you suck, fuck you. And I just, like, out of spite, on principle of the thing, don't want to listen to them. So even if I were feeling bad, I have a hard time admitting, and that part of that's the positive outlet. There's a little bit of denial going on there, but also part of that is like, yeah, no, fuck you. I can't actually be happy and love myself and not conform to all your bullshit. So, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I need you to choose one of the insecure.
Oh,
choose one of the insecure when you are at average.
When I'm feeling right. Okay. When I'm at average, I actually have the 6 insecurities because I'm, because I like, I feel like when I slip, right? Like there's kind of a baseline, but I usually feel like the baseline has gotten actually pretty narrow. And part of that might be the ongoing trauma of living through a global pandemic. If you talk about your baseline getting real small and then it's just a lot of ups and downs. But I feel like generally I do pretty good, or I'm at 6.
I will say that is a thing with you.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're like, everything is fine. Or no, I'm at 6.
Yeah. So maybe I'm just in denial about it all. And maybe I need to, do some self-reflection. And
I think denial.
Okay. Call me out on air.
Based on what I've observed. I will say, you know what? I'm gonna say anxious, preoccupied fits.
I do get preoccupied with things.
And then what happens is you go to 6 and it becomes mixed. And then it's like it's the same process of like, you know what? I'm actually really good and they're not shit.
Yeah.
Thinking back, especially like to some of like the conversations you've had like around breakups,
Yes. Yeah.
And
no, that's I have a hard time thinking negatively about other people.
Yes. And I feel like when you were with an ex, you were kind of like putting yourself down and putting your needs lower than hers, and being like, well, she thinks we're gonna try this. It doesn't really, And so I think
we all know how well that worked out.
Yeah. It didn't. So based on my observation, I would say anxious, preoccupied works for you. And you just and a little bit denial. I think also you're in a healthier relationship this time around. And so that's probably why it feels more like, oh yeah, I'm just secure, you know?
I also have gotten therapy since then. Oh my gosh. Can I, like, this episode is sponsored by Please Get a Therapist.
Yes.
If you can, I mean, I understand there's like access issues and all that stuff, and it's very hard to find one these days, but highly recommend therapy.
I think you're going into the like, so you know, in our like baseline, like very bottom, and then the middle of health, and then healthy. I think you're cresting into healthy right now, and that's why you're relating more to secure instead of some of the insecures.
I've got a solid C average. I'm passing.
You're passing. You're good. You're getting there. You're getting fully, you know, a little more work. You'll be fully into like completely healthy in those upper levels of health. Good for you.
Okay. I, not to beat a dead horse, but I do want to circle back around to the group dynamic of the nurturing and protective, and also the independence, because I think there's more there to flesh out.
Yes. I think there is something to be said about with the group dynamic, with the like the belonging, like when you have a secure community, you can be independent because if you fail, there's a community to catch you.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense to my brain. And also you're so part of the thing about like the nurturing versus the protective is, right, like if we talk about threes, how have threes been taught to protect themselves growing up if all they have is dance moms, right? How have sixes taught themselves to be nurturing if all they have is anxiety about danger, right? But like if you're in a space where you get both of those, it's like, okay, well, I can give everything that I need to myself, so when I feel threatened, I'm just going to retreat and do that. I'm out, bye, thanks.
And you can do that because you have a stable safety net. And so if your relationship with fire department, when you have that stable safety net, you are not reliant on just one or two people. You have the ability to say fuck you, bye, I'm out,
because you can get your needs met still. Okay, I'm satisfied now. Thank you for revisiting that with me. I felt like there was more to uncover there.
Nines, chime in. Did that resonate? Am I just wrong?
Resonated with me. It's like everyone else. I'm allowed to say that now, right? That's because
you have a safety net.
I don't mean that, nines. I love you. That's just kidding. Nines are polarizing for me. 50-50. I might love you. I might dislike you.
Because they remind you of you in unhealth.
Yes. But I'll still maintain a positive relationship with you.
All right. Should we go through the ladder of like unhealth to middle health to...
Oh, sure.
All right. So at the very, very baseline level, I don't even know what like a fully well, actually, I
think
guess.
You've seen me at very unhealthy level.
I have. And you
have seen me full.
Yeah, I have. And it is very much, I fucking need an attachment. Like I need like, gotta find like have to make a safety net, like where people and then as you move up, you start to assess that safety net and be like, well, maybe they weren't the best people to have in my safety net. I was just desperate to have any sort of safety net.
They showed interest and I wasn't picky.
Yeah, I just needed literally anyone at that point. And then you move up and you're secure and you've actually picked out the people who should be in your life for the most part. And you have that stable safety net.
Yeah. I will say that I think the highest level of 9 actualization that you can get in this attachment dynamic would be when you are able to create boundaries and space and pushback within that initial community. Because I think that as what I've noticed as I become an adult is that I have learned the skills to mediate and create like healthy disagreements with people that are like in my new communities. But something about like, I don't know if everyone else feels this too, but something about when you go home and you're like back with your family where it's just like you sink back into your old routines, and that can tend to draw you back into lower levels of growth because that initial attachment is still so strong, you know? So I think sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I can get rid of attachment, but like, okay, but can you really distance yourself from the over attachment to your initial core group? Because that's the issue here, right? I don't want to frame it like it's a problem inherently.
Yeah. Oh, that's all I got on 9s.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, 9s. Time to wrap up. I feel like for the first time in a while, we've actually had some very good content, like intellectually thought-provoking, problem-solved content, you know?
Because I was lifting my half of the work there. 90% of this podcast is Maddie, guys. I don't know if you knew that, but it is, you know, I have been slacking as I'm known to do.
But yeah, so we actually did. Woo! All right. So, question of the month is for the frustration/idealist group, which is the 1s, 4s, and 7s, but anyone can chime in. What is one rule or law that is not a rule or a law currently that you absolutely think should be a rule or a law, and you're like, why the fuck? It's so obvious. Why the fuck isn't this a law?
You can answer us by emailing us enneathinggoes@gmail.com, tweeting us at EnneathingGoes, hit us up on Reddit in the Enneagram Reddit.
Yeah.
You know, just find Maddie posts in there, so just find the question and answer it there.
Yeah.
You could, I guess, leave a review on our podcast
we
app
have not
thing
gotten a review in so long.
Yeah, if you
stars.
wanted to answer it.
It's my birthday. It's my birthday next week. Give me gold stars.
Give Maddie gold stars for her birthday.
I'm sorry, I'm whining. I had a long day.
It's been a long it's been a long just a long life at this point.
Thank you to everyone. Thank you again to our patron. I'll continue to keep you updated on that. But yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.